Penguin Random House Audio presents the Culture Playbook, 60 highly effective actions to help your group succeed. This is the author, Daniel Coyle. For Jenny. Introduction. Where does great culture come from? How do you get it or turn around a culture that needs fixing? Most people believe that culture is determined by your group's identity, by who you are. Strong, established cultures like Disney, Apple, and the U.S. Marine Corps feel so special and distinctive that they seem almost predestined. In this way of thinking, a group's culture is a fixed quality, rooted deep within its DNA. Certain special groups possess the gift of great culture, others don't. I'd like to argue for a different idea. Your culture equals your actions. I believe culture doesn't depend on who you are, but on what you do. Culture is not a gift you receive, it's a skill you learn. And like any skill, it can be done well or poorly. You've likely experienced both good and bad cultures. You know the warm, energizing cohesion of strong culture, the chilly dysfunction of weak culture, and the lurching roller coaster of the places in between. What you might not know, however, is how much power you have to control, strengthen, and transform your group's culture if you take the right actions. I've spent the past decade studying some of the most successful, cohesive cultures on the planet, including the U.S. women's national soccer team, Pixar, IDEO, the San Antonio Spurs, and others. In 2018, I wrote The Culture Code, which explored the science of building great culture and which propelled me further into that world. I've consulted with businesses, professional sports teams, and the military, as well as top-performing groups in education, technology, and the not-for-profit sector. I've gone behind the scenes and studied what works, what doesn't, and why. Early in my journey, I began capturing and analyzing the regimen of actions great groups use to build and sustain their cultures. Every time I encountered a useful method, a cohesion-building technique, a connective habit, a chemistry-igniting tip, I jotted it down and tucked it away in a file I titled Good Stuff. As time went by, the file kept growing and growing. Eventually, it grew big enough that I felt compelled to assemble the tips into a useful, shareable form to create a catalog of field-tested, culture-building actions. A playbook. Rules for using this book. Rule 1. Start where you're at. It's tempting to assume that great cultures exist on a higher plane, in a happy, friction-free world where problems and disagreements happen rarely, and that everything they touch turns to gold. Let me emphasize, this is not true. Strong cultures wrestle with plenty of problems, disagree vigorously, and fail with regularity. The difference is, strong cultures experience these problems, disagreements, and failures within bonds of strong, secure connection, and they use them as leverage to learn and improve. So don't start out chasing a tension-free fantasy, because that will only lead to frustration. Instead, take a skills-based approach. Begin by reflecting on where your group is strong and where it's weak. Are you good at creating belonging, but do you struggle with creating purpose? Are you skilled at sharing risk, but less so at giving everyone a strong sense of connection? Start by building on your strengths, then address your weaknesses. It's also important to keep in mind that while these tips are meant to apply to everyone, bias and unfairness can be baked into institutions and processes in a variety of insidious ways. So it's crucial to keep diversity, equality, and inclusion at the fore when implementing any of these actions. Rule 2. Create conversations, not mandates. Some of you, particularly leaders, may be tempted to use these tips to construct a top-down culture improvement program for your group. Resist this temptation. Groups don't improve their culture by mere compliance. Rather, they co-create a shared path and navigate it together. Use the actions that follow to generate reflection and conversation, and see where they lead you. To that end, I've included a handful of activities and exercises to help you assess your group's culture, build your game plan, and track your progress. Rule 3. There are no rules. Don't think of this book as a rigid blueprint to be followed. Rather, think of it as a set of proven actions that can still be improved. Test, tweak, and customize these actions to your group's individual needs. Figure out what works for you and don't sweat the rest. Culture is always changing and evolving. Your job is to continually adapt, respond, and perform the actions that keep it strong and healthy. Most of all, let go of the outdated belief that great culture is reserved only for certain groups. Culture is not magic, and it's never written in stone. Your group's culture consists of living relationships working toward a shared goal, and it's built by the actions you take together, starting now. The structure of success. You might be starting out thinking, as many people do, that culture is the soft stuff, the warm and fuzzy intangibles. In fact, nothing could be further from the truth. Science has shown that strong culture is created by the continual exchange of 3 key behaviors, which form the sections of this book, and also give us our starting point to begin building your group's game plan. These key behaviors are building safety, sharing vulnerability, and establishing purpose. Building your game plan. Step 1. Let's start by defining your group. Write down the name of a team you're part of, the one you work with most often, whose success is interdependent with yours. Tip: think smaller rather than larger. Now, write down your team's main job. How strong is your group's culture right now? Not how strong you wish it were, but how strong it really is. Think about your team's safety. On a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 means no one feels connected, and 5 means everyone shares a strong sense of belonging, how would you rate your team? How does this show itself in your group? Think about your vulnerability in your team. On a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 means everyone keeps to themselves, and 5 means we trust and share everything, no matter how hard, how would you rate your team? How does this show itself in your group? Lastly, think about your team's purpose. On a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 means we lack direction, and 5 means we move urgently toward a larger shared goal, how would you rate your team? How does this show itself in your group? Now let's look closer. What does our group look like at our very best? Describe the behaviors and activities that generate the most energy, connection, and sense of shared purpose. It might help to imagine being visited by a documentary film crew. What would they witness? What factors stop us from being at our best all the time? Name 3 specific barriers, habits, constraints, traditional ways of doing things that stand in your way. What about our culture is so central and fundamental that we should never change it? If we could change one thing about our culture, what would it be?
Sample complete. Ready to continue?